is a removal of item 8E, unresolved building deficiencies. The item is list number 2, so 559 Nova Street is removed. The other items remain. An addition is under item 9A. It's reference to the 2014-2020 Cultural Plan. 4 delegations, Ms. Holly Bright, Crimson Coast Dance Society, Mr. Kim Smythe, and Ms. Marianne Turley, as well as a letter of correspondence from the Nanaimo Archives. The next item is a removal of 9F, which is Property Maintenance Bylaw, 3097 Shamrock Place. So that's a removal. And the final item is an addition, 14A, addition from Councillor Brennan regarding funding for the Morden Mine. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. I just wondered, Councillor Brennan, were you interested in moving forward that last delegation? And for clarity on it, I believe, Mr. Jackson, it's as a late delegation, it's 5 minutes only?
That's right, Your Worship.
Yes, Your Worship. I would move that we bump up the other business on the funding for Morden Mine to the to presentations, I guess. But I'm not sure where it should go, which
Mr. Jackson,
number.
we're going to bump it up to where?
You can put it under number 7 for administration if you choose.
Then 7A.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll move into the adoption of the agenda as amended.
Move adoption as amended.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And motion to adopt the minutes.
Move adoption of the minutes of the 24th of February.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll move right down now into item 7, which is the late delegation. And gentlemen, welcome. It's going to be on Morden Mine, and we have 2 speakers now that are going to speak to it. Just remember, as a late delegation, it's 5 minutes allowed. Thanks. We'll start you now.
Thank you,
Welcome,
Mayor
Speaker.
Tan, and thank you for putting us first on the agenda so that we can proceed. I assume that council members have had a chance to read the material I distributed, but if not, let me know. It pretty well covers the ground, and what I just propose to do here, partly because people in the audience won't know why we're here, is recap briefly what we're trying to do, and then give you some time to ask questions if you have any to ask. First of all, the Morden Mine is, as many people know about, ready to fall down. And the province, unfortunately, has decided that it doesn't want to put any money into Morden Mine, at least not at this time. But Morden Mine is one of these situations that can't wait for nicer times. And what's needed immediately is an engineering study to specify what actually has to be done and how much it'll cost to fix the structures out there. Without that, it's all guesswork. And we've had some educated guesswork done on it, but the study is needed to get down to cases. So, since the province won't fund it, and they turned down a standard request through the BC Parks liaison last fall, we started meeting in February to cobble together an alternate plan. At the moment, the RDN has approved a portion of the cost at a committee level, the Trail Committee, the Select Committee on Trails, of $15,000 towards the study, which could cost upwards of $30,000. And whether that'll survive the entire budget process with the RDN, I don't know, but that's on the table right now, and it goes forward, I believe, to the Committee of the Whole. Friends of Morden Mine is pledging a quarter of its remaining bank account, which amounts to $1,000 right now. But I should underline the point that Morden Mine has already spent, or the Friends of Morden Mine have already spent thousands of dollars on engineering studies for the site back in 2005. Unfortunately, no action was taken on those studies, so what was done essentially has to be redone, and then there's a lot more to be done as well to get down to costs, which weren't done in 2005. So there's that, and then Councillor Brennan, I understand, will be advancing a proposal that $7,500 be allocated from city coffers. Altogether, that'll take us up to $23,500 if my arithmetic is right. And the intention then is to go to the province and say, please find the other money to top it up to what's required. And we'll have to develop a strategy for that because up to now, as far as we know, the province doesn't want to spend money on the site. But I defy them to maintain that attitude when the local community is putting up most of the money for something that really they should be doing themselves. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but that's the nature of the situation. Now, just briefly, I want to point out something about these two diagrams up front. The first one shows you exactly, I don't know if you can see it very well. Why don't we sort of walk around with it? This particular photo,
Looks like a prize fight here.
this particular photo shows you fairly clearly the nature of the problems out there. That's why I brought it along tonight. We've got serious erosion in all these columns on the structure, and they have to be attended to. As I mentioned in my communication to you, if you want to see all this in detail, there's about a 12-minute video with John and I walking around the site, and John pointing out the nature of these problems and what has to be done to fix them. So you can Google that up, Friends of Morden Mine, and watch in detail. John and I are in and around the structures and up close to them, so it's a very detailed examination. But these photos give you some idea. And the other thing I wanted to point out to you, I'll just skip by that one for the amount of time we have, but the one on the other easel is a conception of the park in the future, which Ron Canlon actually asked us to prepare before we saw Minister Terry Lake in 2012. So we put that down in front of the minister, and it, at the time, worked like a charm. He was immediately engaged in the whole thing. What that shows is a fixed-up structure. The intention is not to try and is not to try and get this back to operational condition. That's something that couldn't be done. It's to preserve the framework that's there. And the whole key to this thing is an interpretation center which will tell people the story of Morden and of the Vancouver Island mining history. So this conception of it, which echoes in its design outlook the head frame and tipple structure, is what we presented at that occasion. And I think it's something we would go forward with to work with architects and engineers in the next stage, assuming money flows into this project. That's down the road. Right now, the engineering study is the critical thing, and the timing of it's very important because the infrastructure grants that everybody's talking about now are about to be dispensed, and we want Morden in the queue in the same way that the Kinsale Trestle project was in the queue the last time round. And I believe about $6.5 million came to that project because their timing was right. So we want to make the timing work correctly for Morden.
Okay, Dr. Ecker, we're up to 6 minutes now of your 5-minute presentation. So
well, yeah, Your Worship, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I'll cut it off right there.
No,
And,
if you just finish it off, that'd be great.
It's more or less all I really needed to say. The other diagram that we have brought with us shows the overall conception of the site. We had a site plan done back in 2010, which the city generously helped fund, I want to mention, as well as the RDN. And that particular plan will now serve us very well in going forward to apply for more funds when the time comes. And we do have more people in the community now working with us on this. So I'll stop right there, and we could answer any questions anybody might have.
Okay, there will possibly be some questions, but I think at this point we can introduce a motion. And good. So, Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've just got some information that this question is also in front of the Nanaimo Economic Development Corporation this week for funding, so I have amended the motion, primarily because the money from the RDN is largely Nanaimo, City of Nanaimo money, and money to the NEDC is wholly, I think, Nanaimo's money. So the motion is that Council provide a grant of $7,500 minus any funds received from NEDC from council contingency to Friends of Morden Mine to assist in funding a detailed engineering study of the headframe and tipple. This funding is contingent on the Regional District of Nanaimo and the Province of BC contributing funds to carry out the study.
And staff has that, do they?
Second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
It's a great project, and good luck with it. Moving into 8A, Corporate Services, the appointment of a Chief Election Officer and Deputy Chief Election Officer for the 2014 local elections, rather. Moved by Councillor Johnstone, seconded by Councillor Beswick. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Into the staff recommendation, basically, that the motion lists off Mr. Chris Jackson, who is obviously here, and Ms. Donna Smith as well to be appointed deputy. Moving into Municipal Highway Renaming Bylaw 2014 number 7192 to rename duplicate road Jenkins Road to Arms Road, ARMINS. Go ahead.
Your Worship, I'd like to move staff's recommendation that council receive for information the report pertaining to municipal highway naming bylaw, Armand's Place, 2014, number 7192.
Second the motion.
Okay, just for interest on it, Mr. Jackson, can we do all three, or is there a seriatim?
It's necessary to do separate readings.
Okay,
Your
fine.
Worship.
Bylaw set.
So we'll move the first one and second by Councillor Padgett. Any discussion on the first?
I have a question.
Oh, okay, go for it.
Could staff tell me where these names come from? How does that work? Who suggests and who approves? Well, we approve, but who came up with Armand's Place, for instance?
Your Worship, largely the road naming comes from the developers, and we do a check to ensure that the names don't have any issues with duplication or inappropriateness in any way. And it's largely from the developer that we then name the roads.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no further discussion on the first motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. On the second motion?
And Your Worship, I'd like to move the bylaw that municipal highway naming bylaw, Armand's Place, 2014, number 7192, pass first reading.
No, we did. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That municipal highway naming bylaw, Armand's Place, 2014, number 7192, pass second reading.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And
Finally, that municipal highway naming bylaw, Armand's Place, 2014, number 7192, pass third reading.
moved by Councillor Anderson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Development variance permit, DVP 226 at 2430 Jinglepot Road. It's requested that Councillor hear anyone wishing to speak to, in respect rather, of that DVP 226. Is there anyone in attendance tonight that would like to speak to matters related to 2430 Jinglepot Road? Seeing none?
Your Worship, I move that Council issue development variance permit 226 at 2430 Jinglepot Road in order to allow an increase in the maximum gross floor area to 100.4 meters squared for 2 accessory buildings, an existing shed and new garage shop.
Thank you.
Second, Your
Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Development variance permit DP 228 at 3500 Hillside Drive. And the motion there is that Council direct staff to proceed with the required statutory notification for development variance permit DVP 228 at that site. Moved. Second. Discussion. Councillor Beswick?
No, Your Worship, I'm sorry.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into unresolved building deficiencies, notice on title, section 5.7. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to the unresolved building deficiencies for the properties listed below. This motion actually is that council instruct the corporate officer to file a bylaw contravention notice respecting the properties listed below at the Land, Title and Survey Authority of British Columbia under section 5.7 of the Community Charter, and recognize that item 2, 559 Nova Street, has been removed. So there are 4 remaining properties: 2038 Cinnabar Drive. Anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 2038 Cinnabar Drive? The next property is 888 Riverside Drive. Anyone in attendance would like to speak to matters related to 888 Riverside Drive? The third property is 1816 Montana Road. Anyone in attendance tonight that'd like to speak to matters related to 1816 Montana Road? And the final property is 1155 Selkirk Drive. Anyone in attendance would like to speak to matters related to 1155 Selkirk Drive? And seeing none, if somebody would like to move the...
Move staff's recommendation, Your Worship.
Okay.
Second.
Moving second. No discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving down into community services and section 9A, 2014-2020, cultural plan for a creative Nanaimo to be introduced by Councillor Patchy, Chair of the Cultural Committee. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you very much. I'll be as short as I can, although I could talk for hours about this wonderful strategy and this wonderful plan, which has almost been in the making for 2 years with a tremendous amount of public participation and input by citizens and stakeholders alike. Now, we have a long list of distinguished delegations, so I'm not going to say too much about it, and we have Ms. Samborski to actually do the presentation, but there's two things that I want to do. I want to read you something that is in the document that came from a survey comment in 2012. And you know, we had the participation of over 1,000 citizens, and many, many good things were presented and sent in. And for anybody who still wonders why we are here with this plan, let me read you that, you know, we don't know who wrote it, but it came to us, and I think it's pretty good. So here goes. Culture is the heart and soul of every community. It needs to be nurtured and cherished and encouraged to grow. It is what makes a city a home instead of just a place we live. It connects us to one another. It is not something we have, but it is who we are. And that explains it just about as good as it gets, as far as I'm concerned. Because there was so much input and so much hard work on the part of many, some on the Cultural Committee and some others, I would like Your Worship to read off those people that were so instrumental in helping with this document, and they are as follows. There's Aramee Robillard. She's the manager of Nanaimo Theatre for the Arts, Centre for the Arts. Bruce Halliday, manager of the Port Theatre. Doral Neve, manager of Theatre One. Debbie Truman, manager of the Nanaimo Museum. Holly Bright, artistic director of Crimson Coast. Julie Bevan, executive director of the Nanaimo Art Gallery. Kathleen Darby, executive director of the Nanaimo Conservatory of Music. Kim Smythe, member of the Nanaimo Cultural Committee. Margot Holmes, executive director, Vancouver Island Symphony. Marianne Turley, member of the Nanaimo Cultural Committee, as well as Wendy Smitka, member of the Nanaimo Cultural Committee. And with your permission, Your Worship, I would like all of those present here to just stand and take a bit of applause for all the hard work. One more thing, Your Worship, before I introduce Ms. Samborski, or I don't have to introduce her, but before she does her job, I want to remind everybody that this Wednesday, you are all invited to the Arts and Culture Awards that are going to be held in the Port Theatre. Starts at 7. It's free, but if you do want to come, and I hope you do, you need to get a ticket. So you need to call the Port Theatre at 250-754-8550 to reserve your seat and be in for a pretty exciting evening. Ms. Samborski.
Thank you, Councillor Patchy, Mayor and Council, and actually thank you to everyone that came out this evening. It's been quite a journey these last 2 years putting together the culture plan with the community. So I just have a few thanks that I'll start out with, which is, of course, thanking Mayor and Council for the last 2 years of support, whether it was for giving us the permission to go out and talk to the community and and update the plan and create a new cultural plan for Nanaimo, to making culture vitality one of the 4 pillars of sustainability in your strategic plan. I think for us that really created that groundswell of excitement and enthusiasm in the community that's managed to carry through the last 2 years. Of course, I'd like to thank the community for their involvement, not just in creating the draft plan, but coming back out earlier this year to endorse the plan with us. Our stakeholders, the technical team, which Councillor Patchy recognized, and the staff that worked on it throughout. And even though he's not here because he's in Disneyland, I would like to take an opportunity to recognize Bob Kuhn, who over the last 2 years really gave his heart and soul into creating this plan and working with the community. And so I really appreciated it. And I'm just sorry that Mickey Mouse kind of beat us out tonight. But it is cultural, so.
So what are you going to do after you retire, Bob? Go to Disneyland.
What else do you do? So this plan grows and supports cultural vitality as the 4th pillar, and it's founded on Council's concepts of creativity, diversity, heritage, and innovation. The vision for a creative Nanaimo celebrates a community that is healthy and prosperous. Culture and heritage defines us as a community and a place. It's not something we have, it's who we are, as Councillor Patchy said. It's everything we were and will be. So this process was, I know the last time Mr. Kuhn was here, he took us through a lengthy presentation of the process and how it came, but just in summary, it was over an 18th month of stakeholder feedback and engagement. And really what was most exciting is that it really captured the priorities and the interest and the enthusiasms that the community had. And one of Bob's common lines and phrases throughout has always been that people who participated in the plan see themselves in the plan, whether it's in the quotes or whether it's in the ideas, the strategies, and the actions. And going into this, we knew that we wanted to create a cultural plan for a creative Nanaimo that was based on Nanaimo and not just something that could have come out of the box or from any other community. 4 themes emerged, and so what we heard from the community is, 1, it was important that we strengthen the creative sector. And what we really heard was all around partnership and collaboration. That if we kept working on things on our own, or partly with partnerships and sometimes with the odd person, we could go a little bit forward, but truly by identifying our key partners and stakeholders, involving them from the start, having them help create the implementation plan, and then in future working with them to actually implement is where we could strengthen that sector. And what was exciting was going through the process is who that sector really is. I think what really brought it all together is we were doing a revisit with the Chamber of Commerce early this year. And one of the things that Kim Smythe asked the group around the table was to please put up their hand if they worked in the creative sector. And 6 of the board members put up their hands because the creative sector is broad enough that it was inclusive of so many people. Secondly, it was about the creative economy. And this was creating that quality of life in place. And it's the quality of life in place that not only we want today, but we want tomorrow and for future generations. Thirdly, that it was about connecting people, communities, and ideas. And throughout the whole plan, we really heard connectivity. In fact, we would often be asked, well, how come there's so much implementation around parks and trails and bikeways? That's really not a cultural initiative. And in so many ways, it's a reflection of, for the community, what it was. And it wasn't about necessarily a place or a specific place. It was just how we stay connected and how everything that has to do with our culture weaves that together. And fourthly, the culture spaces and places. And loud and clear, we heard that those inside and outdoor spaces were just as important to one another. And so one of the concepts in the outdoors was, constantly was Dinoco Plaza. They really want to know what does that mean for us in the future, right to small rehearsal spaces and how we can meet and accommodate those needs today and tomorrow. The plan focuses on building capacity in the arts and culture sector to encourage collaboration and new partnerships. But really, it's larger than that. It's about creating social capital in the community through the arts and culture sector. Whether it's working with our partners to continue them offering a lot of the programs and services that are free to low cost and no cost to the community, whether it's having people come together and leverage those resources so that we can do more community events, or whether we can have a more strategic approach in working together. It really is about creating that building capacity in the arts and culture community and with the arts and culture community. So the plan guides Nanaimo's culture vitality. It provides council with a cultural lens to use when you're making decisions and working through planning processes and projects. The cultural lens applies to everything, whether it's a community plan, a department plan, or strategic plan. It's really asking ourselves, if it's about creating a healthy and prosperous community, does this plan do that? And if it doesn't, then what do we have to do with that plan or that project to ensure that it does? Of course, one of the largest questions we get is around the investment of the plan, and what does that mean for council moving forward? Well, in the late 2013 session, Angus presented us the Arts and Culture Economic Impact Study, where it really indicated that arts and culture in Nanaimo has a $93 million direct economic impact. Similar, though, to other guiding plans, approval of this plan does not result in approval of each of the strategies and actions for council. What it does do is give staff and the community an opportunity to work together on the implementation plans to see what we can do within existing work plans and existing budgets, and then to come back to council with community priorities moving forward. And so there's going to be at least 3 ways that this culture plan will come back to council for updates and approvals. One, you'll get updates through a department work plan when we carry out regular operations, whether it's heritage conservation, grassroots arts and culture opportunities, creative networking, and education. Secondly, we'll be back in front of council through the annual budget process. A few examples of that are one of the implementation strategies is to increase the per capita spending for the cultural operating grants from $2.25 to $3 over 5 years. This is something that we'd have to come to council through the annual operating plans so that you could take a look at it through all the other priorities and budget items that you're discussing. With it being a $66,000 change in funding over 5 years, it's definitely something that we wouldn't expect would be approved when we're looking at approving a planning document versus a project document. And thirdly, there's going to be those projects that are a little bit more complex, complicated, or have multi-sector funding in it. And those ones we'd be coming back to council through separate studies and reports. Obviously, at some point in time, they would hit a 5-year capital or operating plan, but projects such as the Port Theatre completion, 25 Victoria Road, and further implementation of the public art plan would see us coming back to council to talk about what that looks like, what the options are, and giving council an opportunity to get either further information or put it into the plan in years to come. And we will be communicating back throughout the next 6 years, of course, through this plan. So whether it's through annual reporting, the annual budget process, project updates, and through the Culture and Heritage Commission reports and minutes. And of course, there's all those other activities where we'll be hoping that council has an opportunity to come out, whether it's for something like the Culture Awards or different activities that we're putting on with our partners moving forward as a way for us to make sure that we're reporting back to you. So moving ahead, what are our next steps? After approval, really what comes down to us is working with the Culture Managers Working Group, which with the new department is one of our key quasi-staff groups that we'll be working with, to go through the plan and take a look at what we have for the implementation, what the priorities are, what we can do within our existing work plan, and start identifying and defining that. Once we identify that, we'll be sharing that with the Culture and Heritage Commission and then through council, and really it's just going to be to get moving ahead. After talking with our partners earlier this year, we feel really confident that there still is a lot of support for the plan and the strategies that are contained within it. So really right now what we're looking forward to is just having the opportunity to get going and start getting the work done.
Great. We've got some delegations to end, Mr. Jackson. They're each 5 minutes on the delegations. Thank you very much. And I just might add that there is the 2014-2020 Cultural Plan for Creative Nanaimo is available for viewing on the city's website. So the first delegation is Dr. Ralph Nelson, President and Vice Chancellor, Vancouver Island University. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much to Your Honour and all the members of Council. It's a real honour to be here with my colleagues to lend my support as a member of the Museum Board, but also as Vice Chancellor and President of Vancouver Island University for the cultural plan and all the work that's gone into this. I want to start just by using some of the terminology that's in the plan, the cultural vitality piece in particular. That goes directly to the heart of the quote that Councillor Patage talked about earlier and quoted in his introduction. The cultural vitality of this community. It's one of the strengths of this community, and it's one of the things we continue to build on. And I'd like us just to think for a minute. I've only been here 7 years, but I stand on the shoulders of an awful lot of people that have been here before me at the university. And when I think of all of you stand on the shoulders of many people that have come before you in this community. And if we go back far enough, we can think about the First Nations community and where they stood, all the people that came to this community. We heard today about the resource extraction community that built Nanaimo. And this whole economy was based on a resource extraction, whether it be the coal mines, whether it be fisheries, whether it be the forests. And just today, Council celebrated that culture by supporting a motion to support looking at how we recognize and provide that as a piece of our cultural history. So I think a very, very important part of this exercise in terms of the cultural vitality of this community. All of us stand here, looking below us, all the people that we stand on those shoulders, all the people that we hold up that are coming after us. And we can't spend enough time thinking about the cultural vitality of this community, celebrating our history, and celebrating what we do going forward. Because one of the things that we do at the university is certainly educate. But our museum also educates, and it builds awareness of the importance of cultural vitality for the social and economic prosperity of our community. I think very important for us to think about that as we go forward. I want us to think also about some of the things that are happening through the Economic Development Commission and the activity that goes on there relative to understanding that we're moving from that resource extraction economy to a knowledge-based economy. What's that knowledge-based economy built on? It's built on creative, very innovative, and a knowledge-based industry. And that's somewhere that we're moving. That's somewhere that we're seeing a lot of. And it's a lot of it based in the cultural arts. And again, this community has helped support that. We continue to build that. A lot of the people that we're holding up are from there. Vancouver Island University, over 80 countries that we welcome into this community. Much like the First Nations welcomed all of our and many of your families back in the day, we're welcoming all those 80 countries now, every year. And they help us understand culture. They help us understand the world, and they help us understand diversity, another cultural attribute. So I think we have to think about all of that. But I think, going back to my simple statement, as we move forward with this cultural plan, it's a responsibility of all of us. And whether it be 25 years ago when the plan was first conceived that we would come up with a cultural unit within the city, or whether it's 2 years ago that Councillor Pataget was talking about, what we're doing is we're building from what we know. We're building from our history, and we're going to go into the future as a much, much stronger community by virtue of all of us going arm in arm to support the strength of our cultural community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the delegation? Sorry, Dr. Nelson, there was just one question for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Dr. Nielsen. And the VIU contributes greatly to our cultural vitality as well. And for years, I've been thinking about a wonderful, what could become an annual festival, cultural festival in our community with all the talent that we have at the VIU. A March festival, perhaps, an off-season when we're not having a lot of festivals happening. I've had international students living with us, with my husband and myself, and there's so much talent, musical talent and diverse talent, and I'd like to see somebody from the university or the Port Theatre or someone to establish a festival of that type to honor the presence of those talented young people in our community. So just food for thought.
Thank you very much. Well, if I can respond, I'd like to say we have our Dean of Arts and Humanities in the crowd tonight, and Ross McKay does a very good job of supporting all the ideas that come out of the President's office. But this one I can say came from Councillor Johnston. But actually on our March 28th in the morning, we've for 5 years, a 5-year celebration of the Arts and Humanities faculty in providing the colloquium series, and it's amazing the kind of conversations that have happened out of that collective group of students, of faculty, and community, and we're starting to get to the point where we're filling the theater, every month.
Is it open to the
Yeah, that's open to the community, and the number of people from the community that are coming to be involved in that is really quite something. And so I have to really celebrate the faculty within Arts and Humanities who started that and continue to do it. So there are a lot of these things emerging, and any ideas are always welcome. So thank you very much.
You.
Thank you, Dr. Nielsen.
Yep.
Now, the next delegation is Ms. Monica Shore. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Councillors. I will organize that festival for you.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Monica Shore, and I was born and raised in Montreal. I studied jazz performance at McGill University, and I've worked as a professional singer, both nationally and internationally. I moved to Nanaimo just under 2 years ago when my partner Hans, who's here in the plaid shirt, was hired as the jazz drum instructor at VIU. Hans and I felt that Nanaimo would be a perfect place to settle down, and one of the selling points for us was this city's rich musical history and current musical scene. From jazz and the blues to classical and rock and roll, we've got it all. Without a vibrant music scene or a music degree program at VIU, we would not be here. So in order to add to my skill set and not just be known as someone's girlfriend, I enrolled at VIU as a master's student in sustainable leisure management. And next month, I will be defending my thesis, which looks at Nanaimo's cultural planning process. And the main objective of my research was to understand how this small Canadian city supports the development of arts and culture, a sector that is vital for a resilient and diverse economy. So I have studied all of Nanaimo's culture-related strategies and documents since that 1991 motion to pass cultural policy. I've spoken with 15 people from this community who gave me their impressions on the cultural planning process and on general municipal support for arts and culture. The 2014 cultural plan draft that you have in front of you, hopefully planned tonight, is the first truly community-driven cultural plan that Nanaimo has seen. Participants in my study feel that it represents them, and I feel the same way. In fact, it's made me want to stay here and live here and make my life here. This is not a fluffy vision statement. It is a powerful, inspiring, and pragmatic guide for the development of a sector that promises to turn Nanaimo into a destination and potential home base for young, talented, creative, successful professionals and their families. You will have noted that there is a detailed implementation plan within this document to be expanded on, I'm sure, in the coming years. And it provides accountability to city staff, but also to the community and to groups like the Nanaimo Design Nerds that I'm a director with. I fully trust that this plan will be implemented in a very responsible way, and I know that I will be playing my part to help to implement it as a citizen. My research introduced me to a group of artists, arts organization representatives, and public officials who are deeply committed on a daily basis to making Nanaimo a true capital of culture. Some were admittedly uncertain as to whether City Council would move from advocacy for the arts and culture to investment in arts and culture. My research on the creative economy shows that if cultural vitality is to remain one of Nanaimo's pillars of sustainability, investment is no longer a choice, it's a necessity. I hope to live here for a very long time. I also hope to continue working with the Nanaimo Design Nerds, Startup Nanaimo, and Ignite Nanaimo, which are some of many groups that see arts and culture as essential to a successful city. So may tonight be a celebration of a place where municipal government, artists, and the community work together to create a most promising future. Thank you for your support tonight.
Thank you. Now, the next delegation is Ms. Deborah Zorkin, President, Board of Directors, Nanaimo Art Gallery. Welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship, councillors. I'm here in two capacities tonight. One is the President of the Board of Directors for the Nanaimo Art Gallery, and the other is a longtime citizen born and raised in Nanaimo. I'd like to read the letter that the Board of Directors sent to the Council on February 27th. Dear Mayor and Council, Nanaimo Art Gallery's Board of Directors wishes to express strong support for the city's cultural plan for a creative Nanaimo. And it is our hope that Council will approve the plan at its meeting on March 10th tonight. We intend to be here in the audience at Shaw Auditorium this evening with other members, many members of the cultural community, to celebrate this significant milestone. Nanaimo's cultural plan is visionary, with articulated objectives and concrete actions to foster the creative economy and invest in the future of our community. The Gallery Board extends congratulations to city staff, members of the technical team, and community volunteers for their leadership and commitment to developing this plan through an extensive 2-year process of research and community consultation. We also extend congratulations and gratitude to Council for your participation and input throughout the course of the plan's development. As you know, the process of creating the plan has already had a positive impact, facilitating new connections and enriching the conversation about the future of our shared cultural assets. You can count on Nanaimo Art Gallery's Board of Directors, staff, members, and supporters to work in partnership with the city and other community collaborators to assist with the successful implementation of plan initiatives. And this is from the board, myself, Ian Nymeth, Paul Fudge, Brock Dykeman, Mark Ashby, Kathy Dick, Jennifer Moyer, Heather Pastro, Susie Siri, and Gordon Ray. Now that's for the gallery. Personally, as a longtime citizen of Nanaimo, born and raised here, I'd like to support this plan. You know, my family has been involved in business and development in the city of Nanaimo now for over 65 years. I have witnessed many ups and downs within our community. For the past 30 years, we have been striving as a community to re-energize, recreate a viable downtown. We've been successful and have brought the heart back into the city, and with this cultural plan, we will now bring back the soul. We need to deepen this relationship between a center of business, finance, professional services, and government on one hand, with a center of arts, culture, and entertainment on the other. The cultural plan enables the city to support the creative economy needed to create the buzz factor, which contributes to the attractiveness of our downtown. There's an ongoing conversation about the effects of a community's creative and cultural assets. First, a thriving arts sector functions as a direct jobs generator with direct economic benefits. And that's been determined by the economic development report that came out. Secondly, a thriving arts sector functions as a magnet for other innovative businesses. And thirdly, an arts-enriched environment may also stimulate the creative capacity of current and future generations of workers. In closing, I support wholeheartedly the city's cultural plan for a creative Nanaimo and ask Council to recognize the value of this plan and the need for its implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next delegation is Ms. Sarah Lane. Welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Sarah Lane, and I am the Principal Managing Director of SEL Conference Services, a conference and event planning business I have been running for 6 years now that has produced the Festival of Trees for VIU for the past 2 years and was recently responsible for assisting the Nanaimo Port Authority host the Association of Canadian Port Authorities conference here in Nanaimo, which had a significant impact on our local economy. The event sector has been identified as a cultural industry under the proposed Arts and Culture Plan, and you'll be happy to know that I enlisted my business as part of the cultural map on Saturday. Doing my part to give back to our arts and culture community, I sit as the Vice Chair for the Centre for Arts Nanaimo, which is responsible for running Nanaimo Centre Stage. I'm here tonight to support the adoption of this plan by City Council, request that Council provides the funding and venues needed to ensure this plan is realized, ask that Council considers funding on a multi-year versus year-to-year basis, ask Council to support the plan publicly in all of your conversations, and to ask Council to turn the priority setting possibly over to the Creative City Commission, which is structured to report directly to you in this plan. I have read the Arts and Culture Plan, and I'm excited that Council is looking to adopt this plan to complement the introduction of cultural vitality as the fourth pillar in the city's strategic plan. Kudos to you for embracing this concept and creating the Culture and Heritage Department, which is now independent of Parks and Recreation. This action alone has solidified that Council is serious about exploring the positive impacts arts and culture have on our community. This plan is revolutionary for Nanaimo and exhibits a true partnership between the city and the arts and culture community. I'm hoping that it will be your role to provide core funding and arts venues, and our role will be to leverage that funding to make our organization sustainable, while improving the quality of life of Nanaimo citizens and to attract new members of the creative class. The Arts and Culture Economic Impact Study released by the NEDC last month showcased that the sector contributes $94,880 jobs, with a total economic impact of $154 million, supporting 1,330 jobs in the community. The arts and culture industry is a foundational industry that will help attract the creative class we keep talking about needing to engage. As we grow away from a resource-based economy into the knowledge-based economy, it is imperative that we invest in the development of our arts and culture community now. Otherwise, these creative citizens that we'd hope to attract will move to the larger city centres, where arts and culture communities are much more vibrant. Kevin Spacey put it nicely in a speech last year he gave at the Old Vic Theatre in London, a theatre that he's been fundraising for the past 7 years. He said, "Arts funding is neither charity nor empty philanthropy. It is an investment in our future." It'd bring me great pleasure to see the arts and culture community get to a point where we aren't in need of annual handouts. But to get there, we will need some money to assist these venues and organizations work towards financial stability. Just last month, the federal budget detailed a little more stability for the Canadian Arts Coalition, which now has $25 million in permanent funding, which they used to have to apply for year after year. From the Nanaimo Centre Stage's perspective, it is really hard to establish programming when we only have funding year to year. That being said, we are booked solid and home to several community groups annually, including we have a booking in for 1 month next in May, so we're occupied for the whole month of May. In addition, we will need to have a collective voice that this initiative is important to our citizens and their development, and that we will need to support these venues and organizations. As was indicated in the plan, I quote, "Strengthening our creative sector will take a coordinated effort from all stakeholders in the culture sector, as well as our community at large, which are the taxpayers. Should Council waver about the importance of developing the arts and culture industry in Nanaimo, we could fail at getting the buy-in we need. As the plan also states, it will be important to educate residents about the benefits of the city investing in arts and culture, as it has been identified that residents are more supportive of initiatives they know are good, sound investments with proven benefits and returns. I ask that Council provide the funding needed so the Creative City Commission has the ability potentially to set priorities to provide funding for the arts groups under longer agreements so they can come up with long-term growth strategies which will allow them to become more successful. It is the ongoing uncertainty of funding in this community that could be our biggest threat, and I ask Council to put priority behind this initiative and support it with the resources needed, including a PR campaign that will ensure taxpayers support it as well. In the past few years, I've seen the infusion of creative talent hit Nanaimo, as it may seem, mainly due to the programs VIU is offering, as we've seen here tonight. We need to set the stage now so that these individuals, when they're committing their time to VIU, they have enough time to fall in love with Nanaimo as well. It would be great to see nominations put forth for the Creative City Commission detailed in this plan, which would include some of these individuals with national and international experiences in the arts, and see this commission responsible for determining some immediate priorities. As Kevin Spacey said in his closing remarks, the creative industries lead the UK economy. They constitute one of the nation's most powerful natural resources. Let's shout louder to make those in positions of power and influence realize their value to our economy, as well as to our collective soul. The question is not, what can the economy do for our arts, but what can the arts do for our economy? The answer is a good deal. I know we're not the UK, but we happen to have the same human resources they do. I applaud you in your efforts in introducing this initiative that will help Nanaimo in becoming a vibrant arts and culture centre and consequently a more successful city.
Thank you very much. Now, the next delegation is Mr. Mark Ashby. Welcome, sir.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak tonight in support of the Culture Plan. My name is Mark Ashby. I am an architect with a practice in public arts. I sit on the board of directors of the Nanaimo Art Gallery as well as the Nanaimo Design Nerds Society. So I wear a few hats related to the cultural sector, and I'd like to speak in support of the draft Culture Plan tonight. The city has invested enormously in the creation of this plan. City staff have worked with local institutions, with stakeholders, engaged the community in order to create this plan as a collective vision for the future of Nanaimo. The work is thorough, it's comprehensive, it's thick, and it's built on extensive consultation. If ever there was a publicly defensible piece of policy, this is it. I'm confident that Council will support the adoption of the plan tonight because the plan reflects a vision for our city that is truly inclusive. You've already heard from a number of individuals who recognize the importance of this step to the emergence and the evolution of our city. Some of these individuals have called Nanaimo home all their lives. Some have left, only to return. Some, like myself, are relative newcomers to Nanaimo. I think I can speak for all of us when I say that Nanaimo is a place of possibility. It's a place where individuals can make a difference, and where young, creative, hardworking entrepreneurs have significance. Nanaimo is also a bit of a best-kept secret, and it's time to let that secret out. This plan, I think, is not a direction. This plan's a response. Ignite Nanaimo, inspire Nanaimo, start up Nanaimo, the young professionals of Nanaimo, the Nanaimo Design Nerds, co-working spaces, tech incubators, the Siri Tech Campus, the growth of the Nanaimo Art Gallery. All these things are happening in the city right now. These organizations and initiatives, they reflect an emerging trends towards an economy of creativity, of innovation, and of culture. A little over a year ago, the Nanaimo Design Nerds Society hosted a jam on the theme of constructing culture. And although the theme of this jam married perfectly with the work of the city in developing the cultural plan, and in fact became an appendix to this plan, this alignment was actually coincidental. The Nanaimo Design Nerds exist to develop the creative economy of Nanaimo. Jams like this are one tool that we use in order to further that goal. No fees were paid by the city or anyone else for this jam. This was our investment into the cultural health and the creative economy of our city. The event stood out in a couple of ways. It attracted over 100 people, 100 participants, far exceeding our expectations and the expectations of the city staff members who participated in the event. It attracted a very broad diversity of people, but most notably, by maintaining a focus on a broad, inclusive vision for the future, the jam maintained a positive and supportive energy that left participants feeling empowered and inspired by their own role in the future of creating the city. So the inevitable consequence of a plan is the investment of resources. So the real work of this plan begins now. I don't know what form this investment will take, but I hope that it will take the form of enhancing and growing partnerships that fortify the relationship between the city and organizations outside of it. I hope it will take the form of capacity building to enable the creative sector to develop locally, to diversify, and to attract private sector investment on its own. I know it will take imagination, it will take wisdom, it'll take courage, it will involve risk, and the recognition that small failures are a consequence of great success. I look forward to a day 10 years from now when we can all look back collectively and recognize that this cultural plan was one of the smartest investments that Nanaimo made. It's taken courage to create this document, and it will take more courage to invest in its realization. So as you take this small and important step tonight, recognize that you're not taking it alone, but with the support of individuals, businesses, institutions, and organizations, which all bring courage and capacity to transform the culture and the future economy of Nanaimo. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next delegation is Dr. David Whitty on behalf of Inspire Nanaimo. Dr. Whitty.
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly commend Council for the leadership in this initiative and the diligence and hard work of staff and community. It's an excellent document. Councillor Apache stole my thunder at the front end. I was going to cite that quote as well, so good choice. I won't repeat it here, but I might end with it, but rather than begin with it. The Inspire Nanaimo, as you know, is a group of the three partners, the city, Greater Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce, and Vancouver Island University. I'm interim chair and am proud to chair that group. We're founded on 5 pillars, typically pillars of sustainable development, which is economic, social, and natural environment. But we've also added 2 other pillars, built environment and culture. And we were really pleased to see that in the city's strategic plan that culture is embedded in that document as well, recognizing the important role it plays. Others here have cited tonight the importance of culture, and I won't repeat that, but clearly that you would know when the presentation was done here on successful cities, the important role that culture plays in achieving a successful city. And it plays that in many ways, but certainly, and others have talked, and it's embedded in the cultural plan, the important role of the creative economy and the creative class, and how that is very much wound into culture as we know it today. I would suggest that what's happened here through this document and process is that and as a humble new citizen here, that it's my observation that Nanaimo has reached a maturing, and there's a maturity here in the document and a maturation in Nanaimo's character, and certainly points away to a very positive future. The process itself actually was, and some of you know I'm kind of a process junkie, but the process is certainly to be commended as well. And I think it's another illustration of, with a rich, deep process, that we can come with some wonderful creative energy and product, and clearly that's what's happened in my view. Inspire Nanaimo supports the adoption of the culture plan and urges its implementation and associated budgeting as you take it forward. I'd like to actually quote from the vision statement, because I think it's something that perhaps bears repeating. Nanaimo is a healthy and prosperous community that recognizes the importance of creativity and cultural vitality for quality of life and place. Inspire Nanaimo is all about promoting quality of life that cannot be done without a rich cultural base. Thank you for taking the leadership and initiating that. And then I will end with the quote that you began with, if I may. Culture is the heart and soul of every community. It needs to be nurtured and cherished and encouraged to grow. It is what makes a city a home instead of just a place we live. It connects us to one another. It is not something we have, but it is who we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Whitty. The next delegation, Mr. Bruno Draghi, Mr. Dragani, rather, is the chair of Community Futures. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. So, good evening, Mayor Rattan, Council, staff. So, yes, I am the chair of Community Futures Central Vancouver Island, and tonight I'm speaking in support of the Culture Plan. So, first of all, Community Futures is a nonprofit, federally funded organization that helps support rural communities' economic development, by providing new and existing businesses the tools and resources they need to succeed. And we support activities that encourage employment growth. Community Futures sees supporting the arts as an investment decision that makes good long-term sense for businesses, the community, and for the economy, locally as well as nationally. The Nanaimo Economic Development Corporation has reported that arts-based employment in Nanaimo grew 41% between 2001 and 2006, engaging roughly 2,500 individuals. It reported at that time that revenues were $56 million per year, and the arts and culture sector of Nanaimo, it noted, beat out transportation, manufacturing, and the construction sector. Today, I believe that number is about 94 million. The arts contributes not only directly through revenue generation and employment, but also indirectly through the creation of spin-off businesses attracting skilled workers in other fields, inspiring urban revitalization, and furthering the development of a unique community identity that can be leveraged for the competitive advantage as a destination city for cultural tourism. What is true locally is even more true nationally. Returns of $1.9 billion per year in direct benefits are generated by arts organizations in Canada, according to an in-depth analysis carried out by McKinsey and Company in 2008. Induced benefits flowing from their spending and supplies on wages and other goods and services amounted to more than $7.2 billion. Those investments also generated important social benefits, including culture vitality, educational opportunities, community engagement, and greater richness in civil society overall. Business investment in the arts clearly makes an important contribution to communities and also benefits more directly in marketing and profile, in their ability to attract creative employees, and in addressing corporate social responsibility goals. The City of Nanaimo has identified arts as an important economic driver for Nanaimo, a key pillar of its growth strategy, but public funding alone cannot make the arts deliver on its potential. As McKinsey's study concludes, public and private sector support is essential, and the business community has a leadership role to play. It is a win-win for all of us. It has been quoted, I'm going to end with a quote, that culture is the life, blood and soul of the community. Without it, we're simply an empty vessel of commerce. Making the investment now will pay off as we start to attract exciting and innovative people from all sectors of our city. Culture for a city is its public face and its heart. Community Futures encourages you to vote in favor to support the culture plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Janney. The next delegation is Mr. Sash Angus, the Chief Executive Officer, Nanaimo Economic Development Corporation. Welcome, sir.
Worship, members of council, it's our pleasure to sit and or be here today to speak in favor of the cultural plan. I won't go into great depth about our economic impact study that we did last year, as you've heard it more than enough times this evening, although to say that we were happy to be a part of that and make sure that we had accurate information about this important economic engine, as well as cultural asset for our community. We, as your Economic Development Corporation, seek to retain our best and brightest corporations and citizens, attract new businesses and individuals to the community, and encourage people to visit our community as a wonderful place to have both a wonderful tourism experience and cultural experience as well. And so this report speaks to that in a number of different ways. I can speak probably more quickly as we're late in the night about a recent experience that I had, which I think really drives home the point. We were meeting last Thursday with the Vice President of a prospective new corporate citizen, and I can tell you throughout the course of about a 2-hour meeting, we spent more time on quality of life, including arts and culture, sport and recreation, than we did about the bottom line and those things that go into their business inputs. And so I think it really speaks to the future, the nature of the future industries that we'll have as a community, where human capital is the major input, and making sure that we have a vibrant community where they can have a great quality of life and great quality of opportunity is going to be incredibly important to make sure that we remain competitive and provide household sustaining jobs for our citizens of the community. And so I want to thank you for your consideration this evening, and thank you again for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Angus. delegation is Ms. Holly Bright. And that's the Crimson Coast Dance Society.
Thank you. I'm definitely here in support of the cultural plan, and my presentation is a little bit of a different nature, but I do want to start by saying thank you very much for standing in for all of us citizens and doing the business of our city. I'm so happy that people stand up and take part and choose to do that. I appreciate it. And I'd also like to thank you for the operating funding that we received through the Crimson Coast Dance Society, as well as our event funding. And I'd also like to thank the Cultural Committee for their support in that. What this means to us is leveraging funding from various levels of government, as well as corporations and individuals. And it allows us to make our art, to present art, and to also really create accessibility. And sometimes I hear people talk about putting our hand out, or getting, what do I want to say, just putting our hand out and getting support for making our work, and we do get that. And what it does is it allows access. Particularly the operating funding in the community allows access to people who couldn't normally afford the arts. If we didn't have that from all levels of government, we would be looking at tickets costing upward of $125 each in order to present production. And no one can afford that on an ongoing basis. And people do desire to have art in their lives, as reflected through all levels of government and the interest in our population for the arts. So that's what your funding does. It allows us to bring in up $70,000 to $125,000 of funding from outside of the city, and probably at least 80% of it stays in our city, which is really exciting. And it allows us to invest ourselves in doing good work in Nanaimo. We produce a season of dance performances, main stage performances, and a festival. And we also provide a mentorship program in career explorations in performing arts, administration, event planning, and production and performance to teenagers. And I was really happy to see that this is actually reflected in the cultural plan as well, as a goal and a vision that we start to create and establish cultural workers here in our community. And we're also building an audience and educating an audience for the future, and also art supporters for the future. And we're really pleased to be a part of the cultural fabric of the community. We present professional productions throughout the year. We bring in some of the most medaled artists in Canada. Margie Gillis has been here at least three times. And every time they're here, they work in our community, working with the students, working with adults who enjoy dance. Margie, I compare her to the Wayne Gretzky of Canadian contemporary dance. She comes from a family of Olympic ski champions, as well as having received the Governor General's Award, and she is a member of the Order of Canada. And Peggy Baker is another member of the Order of Canada who's come. She's a Governor General Award winner. She's received the Premier's Lifetime Achievement Award for Excellence in the Performing Arts. So we bring in some pretty amazing people. I kind of compare her to the National Women's Hockey Team, Christine Sinclair. She's articulate physically, she is intelligent, and she's a leader. And they get a chance when they're here to work with our people and make an impact, not only by presenting their work, but also personally through interaction, through mentorship. So these are the effects of the support that you've given us through operating funds. So I'm just really grateful for that, and I wanted to come and say that. I wanted to thank staff as well as the Cultural Committee, and I'd like to thank each of you. Mr. McKay, thank you. George Anderson, Fred Patchy, Diana Johnston, Mayor Rattan, Bill Bestwick, and I'd like to thank Jim, who's not here, and I'm sad that he's not, Mr. Greaves, and Diane. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next delegation is Mr. Kim Smythe. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, and thank you for your patience tonight. Rest assured, if you make the right decision, you won't have to do this again until 2021. So, I'm excited to be here tonight because I'm part of the Cultural Advisory Committee to Council. You'll notice my badge. Who are behind the development of this plan for at least the past 2 years. I'm also excited because I'm one of the co-authors of the cultural plan as a member of the technical team of professional arts and culture managers. It was a great pleasure working with the team. We butted heads a lot of times. That's what that's what produced this awfully positive report for us here tonight. I'm excited for a third reason. Change of name badge. And that's because I own a business within the creative economy, producing festivals and community events in Nanaimo, and have done so for over 10 years. I'm excited for a fourth reason. It's because of my position as CEO of the Greater Nanaimo Chamber of Commerce, and an appendix in this plan, the NEDC Economic Impact Study, that reveals the $93 million economic impact of arts, culture, and the creative economy. It finally monetizes Nanaimo's arts and culture on a community scale and depicts arts and culture as an industry. Today you have the opportunity to adopt a plan that focuses the energy of this industry on our community. You will be adopting a plan that is a product of thousands of hours of work by city staff, consultants, community leaders, and the voices of hundreds and hundreds of people in Nanaimo. I think that Suzanne cited some 900 or so, or perhaps it was you, Councillor Patchy. There was another 1,000, I believe, that rang in through the survey as well. So the numbers are up there. You will implement a plan that provides direction, clarity, and focus to hundreds and hundreds of people working locally in the creative sector. And you will endorse an expanded definition and perspective of arts and culture and frame that within the creative economy in Nanaimo. From the Chamber of Commerce's point of view, the plan is not overly aggressive and does not place undue pressure on civic resources, either financial or human. It presents a balanced and well-thought-through plan of action that the city's new Department of Culture and Heritage can use as a guideline for its development in these formative days. Indeed, the cultural plan actually recommended the formulation of that department among its many action items, so in fact you are already implementing activities contained within it. This plan helps Nanaimo identify its brand and its personality. It says Nanaimo is artsy, it's got culture, and it's creative. The better we can define ourselves, the more effective we can be at reaching out to attract new businesses, new residences, a new consciousness, and a fresh perspective on Nanaimo by outsiders, something that many of us think is long overdue. So, did I mention I was excited to be here tonight? The closer we get to actually calling the vote on this one, the more excited I'll get. So it's a good idea I sit down now and let you get on with it. Thank you to everyone involved in this process, and thanks especially to Mayor and Council who will be making the right choice here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Now our final delegation is Marianne Turley.
Good evening, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak on the cultural plan. I'm so totally excited that we're here. It's finally happening, and we're actually talking about it. So this evening, I'm speaking on behalf of as chair-elect for the Chamber of Commerce. I'm also speaking on behalf as a small business owner, and I'm speaking as a long-time supporter of arts and culture here in Nanaimo. My husband and I have long supported arts and sports in Nanaimo for many years because we really do believe that both of those give a well-balanced fabric to the community. It is really important. And this is a plan. It is a guide. It is, like any business has, it is a guide so that we can all move forward and make some wonderful things happen in Nanaimo. As Suzanne Zamborski mentioned when she gave the presentation to the Chamber, when we were all sitting there and saying, you know what, many of us are actually, as business people or organizations, really involved with arts and culture. It is really part of what we do. We as a florist, we had VIU, we have, of course, the media, interior graphic designers, restaurant, hotel. And, that's amazing. This is a business type meeting, but we're really involved with arts and culture. So the best way for me to share some of the values of arts and culture thriving is through experiences. And because I have been involved with the symphony for a long time, I will use some symphony examples that you might like to hear about. So recently, 2,300 grade 4 students attended the Symphony Education Show at the Port Theatre. Their fan mail really showed why arts engagement activities are important at a young age. The symphony has piles of fan mail at the office, and they're really cute. And basically, most of these are, dear timpani player, dear xylophone player, really, who would have thought? Dear timpani player, drums, I love the drums. They were really important. So this is what our kids are taking home with them. And they said, you know what? I'm now going to take guitar lessons. And one of the kids said, I'm going to play the violin. So, you know, my biggest concern is that kids are wired, computer, phones, whatever, that they actually see that art comes together. It's not just a picture, that music comes together, and that art is alive, and that you have to experience it, and how wonderful it is to experience that. So somebody else also gave a testimonial when he was singing in the symphonic choir, and his name is Dan Spencer, and he said it was okay if I spoke about it. And he said that, I felt I had to write to you to try and explain what effect the last concert had on me, and also on most of the people who I know that participated in the concert. I will say that it was a true life-changing experience for me and for them as well. It was one of these events one can tick off as the bucket list, but it doesn't do it justice. I simply cannot express the impact the whole event had on me and others. This was and will remain a memory that I shall treasure for the rest of my life. I said to the conductor that I'm not a confident nor really competent singer, so for me to be able to sing in a 100-member choir with a full symphony orchestra in front of a full house and do well, that was unbelievable. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to change my life. And I just wanted to close with a statement that I think really explains arts well. Alan Brown, an arts researcher in the US who started this, creative capital is a human phenomenon and a lived experience. It is a value system that encourages, rewards, and integrates imaginative thinking into community life. It is an asset that increases the effectiveness of individuals, brings families closer together, and enables communities to imagine and realize a better future. The community with the most creative capital wins. Why? Because it is safe, clean, colorful. Because its residents have a strong sense of connectiveness and shared purpose. And because it is a place where everyone wants to live. And that's what we all want Nanaimo to be. And this is some of the fan mail, if you have a little bit of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I might just mention while we're passing those letters around that we also received a letter from Nanaimo Art Gallery's Board of Directors in support of the cultural plan, and a letter from Ms. Christine Munzer, Archives Manager, Nanaimo Archives, also in support of the cultural plan. You know, there'll be a motion, and I suspect I know who might move it, Councillor Pecci, but I just want to say a couple of quick things. One, a huge thank you to Councillor Pecci for spearheading this on behalf of Council, because it really is an important program to have, and really to our own staff. And here we have Suzanne Samborski, our Senior Manager of Culture and Heritage, and the staff who worked so hard to put this together. This is an incredible document, and I really hope that everyone takes the time to read it. This is a work of art, and it gives us direction. Now, I'm not about to guess in advance that this will be unanimous on the vote. All I want to say is I'll be supporting it. Councillor Pecci.
After that, Your Worship, it is my pleasure to move that Council adopt the 2014-2020 Cultural Plan for a Creative Nanaimo. And I so move.
Moved and seconded. We have Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, since everyone's opening with quotes, I thought that I would open with a quote as well. And it's that arts and culture is just as important as well-maintained roads and bridges. By giving us the chance to stimulate our minds with new ideas and experiences, they give us the opportunity to become more creative. Arts and culture are the infrastructure for the mind. And I apologize if you were planning to speak first, but I thought that, but anyway, so sorry for taking your thunder, Fred, but anyways. For me, I'm a musician and I play 5 different instruments, so I understand the importance of culture within our community. And I believe that it's an integral part of our community. And I attended some of the workshops, such as the jam that was put on by the Creative Nerds and so on. And it was just amazing to see the amount of individuals who were actually out there. And we saw people of all ages, all types of sectors coming out to add their input into this plan. And so for me, I think those are the absolutely important parts that we can see from this plan, is that we have a broad spectrum of the community coming out to support this plan. And looking backwards to 2008, when the city of Nanaimo was the cultural capital, to now looking to the future and seeing that we may be adopting this plan tonight, I think that's a great thing. And if we look at the cultural plan from 2008, on page 9, the 6th point is that it says that the City of Nanaimo should enable residents of all ages and abilities to explore their individual creativity through a wide variety of arts and cultural opportunities. And this plan does exactly that. Creativity is the bedrock of innovation. And for me, I fully support this plan, and I hope that the rest of Council will do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. I so much enjoyed listening to all these passionate people speak toward this very important plan tonight. And kudos to Kamala Tang and everybody else in this audience and this tonight that have spent hundreds of thousands of their life's hours working towards culture in our community. We've always been a cultural capital, I believe, Kamala, right from the get-go when our Opera Society started in the old Dorchester Hotel. We have the longest-standing concert band in the history of Canada. We have the longest-standing consecutive festival in the Nanaimo Empire Day Society. And I'm hoping for centuries to come we'll have the longest standing opportunity for our grade 4 students or grade 3 students or whatever to attend the symphony sessions, because you could hear a pin drop, Your Worship, in the Port Theatre when those children were listening to those talented musicians. It was amazing. So and for me personally, who's not a wonderful singer, I really enjoy the opportunity.
Come on now, no laughing, please.
To sing with the symphonic choir. It's for all of us who embrace culture, it's so much fun to be able to be a part of it and to be able to stand up with such a wonderful symphony orchestra. We're so fortunate and so blessed to have that in our community. So thank you, everybody, for working so hard towards this goal.
Great. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I have to admit that I can't dance, and I can't sing, and I can't act, and I can't paint, and I can't sculpt, but I so enjoy it when you do. And so it just brings such joy to me and to my community. So I'm really happy to support this. It is a great piece of work, and as the Mayor said, it's a piece of art. So thank you.
Okay, I see no other speakers. It's been moved and seconded, and the motion, obviously, that is to adopt the 2014-2020 Cultural Plan. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And those that wish to stay can certainly do so. But the next one is the item C, maybe you'll wait just a moment here while we...
Item B is involved, right?
Community services, aren't we? Art gallery.
And look at this one. I Love Diana.
B is
No, I love Dino, the dinosaur. You always get the rhythm right. I like how you play. And the whole orchestra.
I must say, that was very theatrical.
Yeah.
Very theatrical. The opening act was good.
Yeah, that was good. And now we've got...
Closing act was good.
So, now we move on with the agenda and the 2014 temporary outdoor public art selection to be introduced by Councillor Patchy, Chair, Cultural Committee.
Thank you,
Councillor
Worship. This, of course, deals with the proposed donation by the Nanaimo Art Gallery with regards to two pieces. Number one, Reaching Orca, which is the child of Carl Sean McMahon. And secondly, Never Out of Season, done by David Munch. This is a wonderful example of how arts in public places, pieces eventually via the good services of the art gallery, come up as a donation to this community. And I would urge you to accept these two artworks from the art gallery and to allow them to remain in our shared public spaces permanently. If Ms. Zamborski has anything to add to that, then please do.
Nothing? Okay. The motion is that Council approve the 2014 temporary art public
Your Worship,
art selection.
sorry, that's it's the motion just before that, under B.
Sorry, I was so seized with the idea. I had something to say about the giant Pacific octopus. I'll have to wait for the next one here. I skipped ahead on it. That accept two temporary artworks as donations from the Nanaimo Art Gallery and allow them to remain in our shared public spaces permanently. That's been moved and seconded. Nope, Councillor Anderson came to the rescue and it's been seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now, Councillor Patchy, were you going to
Thank
introduce?
you.
And I'm dying to talk about the giant Pacific octopus here. So.
Well, as you know, last week you were good enough to approve one piece that is being introduced to our city under the outdoor public arts selections. And at that time, I advised you that we had actually been submitted 3 proposals, 2 of which we at that time could not accept because we did not feel comfortable with a certain lack of information. Since that meeting last week, at the very first combined meeting of the new Culture and Heritage Commission, we were graced by a visit by Dan Ritchie, whose artwork this giant Pacific octopus is. And he was able to explain to the satisfaction of the Commission that this particular piece should also be accepted. So it is with that in mind that the committee's recommendation is that Council approve the 2014 temporary public arts selection of Dan Ritchie's artwork, Giant Pacific Octopus, for display along the Harbourfront Walkway. And again, if Ms. Zamborski has anything to add, please do. Okay, thank you.
Second, Your Worship.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? And I thought I have to jump in here and say that I'm probably the only person in this room, maybe people at home have, that many years ago, diving off Winchelsea Islands there, I was grabbed by a giant Pacific octopus. And you know,
Yes, it was in
the giant Pacific octopus, for those that are not aware, and I'm sure everyone on staff is, are the largest octopus in the world. And they go anywhere from, well, I can't give it to you in kilos now, but anywhere from 150 up to a max of 200 pounds. So they get to be a pretty large size. Having said that, the motion is on the floor to recognize the giant Pacific octopus, which is gone now. So all those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. Move. What? So, You have security. Item D, funding for operations of the Cedar 4-H Barnyard, to be introduced by Councillor Johnstone, Chair, Parks, Recreation, Culture Commission.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to move Commission's recommendation that Council approve 3 years of funding of $4,000 per year from the Community Program Development Grant Fund starting in 2015 for operations of the Cedar 4-H Barnyard within the City of Nanaimo, with funding options to be revisited in 3 years' time.
Seconder, moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we're moving down now into item E, Bruce Avenue Utility Replacement Tender. Purpose to advise council of a public tender call of $250,000 and above in accordance with the city's purchasing policy, and the motion is there. Somebody would like to move that?
So moved.
Move and seconded.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And item F has been pulled. We're going down to G, Parks, Recreation, and Culture Commission meeting, the minutes of the meeting held 2014, January 22nd.
Move adoption, Your Worship.
Second, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability minutes held 2014, February 12. Who? Okay. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving into item 10A, bylaws with no accompanying report. A motion that Park Dedication Bylaw 2014 number 7182 be adopted. Moved. Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And correspondence not related to a report to council. And there are 2 letters there. And if someone would like to move receipt.
We'll move receipt.
And second, any business arising? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, you're on.
I think I'm getting tired. The letter from Ms. Kathleen Gibson on behalf of BC Food Systems Network requests that we call on the provincial government to do 3 things. And so I would move that we ask the provincial government to retain the agricultural land reserve as one zone for the whole province, retain the Agricultural Land Commission as a province-wide independent administrative body with judicial powers as it has now, and if changes are to be considered beyond those outlined by the Auditor General in the Agricultural Land Commission report in 2010, conduct a province-wide consultation process with the ALC and those affected by its decisions.
Second, Your Worship.
Seconded. I can tell you I'll be supporting that because I think it's worthwhile. I've had a lot of concerns about where we're going with the ALR, and I think this is the right direction. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Oops.
Opposed? What are you doing?
No, that's okay. It's good to speak to us.
Oh, did you want to speak?
No, just quickly. I would just like to
You're gonna change
advise
the vote?
council that, that I've invited Ms. Gibson to come and present to the Agricultural Advisory Committee of the RDN. So staff is going to slate a time frame that she can come and do that.
Okay, thank you. And now, council appointments, there are none, and no notice of motion, he says, looking around. And we've actually already had the delegation, Dr. Richter, and so we move straight down into question period. Item 15.
Robert Fuller, 3350 Hammond Bay Road. I've got 2 questions having to deal with the cultural plan. On a personal level, I agree with pretty much everything the delegation stated tonight. And as a taxpayer, which I also have to weigh in, I don't see the cost of this plan at the present time being too overwhelming. They seem to be pretty reasonable. My questions have to do with a section in the cultural plan labeled financial impact under the heading separate reports, and it's the 3rd bullet in there, and it states, provide tax incentives for new startup, creative cultural businesses in the downtown core make use of revitalization area tax exemption from the community charter as per tax exemption program.
Sorry, what page is that on?
I believe it's 43. I could be wrong with that.
Okay, that's right.
I'm not a big fan of tax exemptions for businesses, be they startup or well-established. And as a taxpayer, I already support the Art Gallery, Museum, Port Theatre, and many other organizations, buildings, and entities in the downtown area. Why should I, as a taxpayer, be asked to support startup cultural creative businesses in the downtown core? And why not just a blanket tax exemption for the entire city? And my second question, I was under the impression that the revitalization area tax exemption was for hotels/motels as a method to attract a recently proposed hotel adjacent to the conference center. I looked through this, through the document, through the tax exemption document, and in no way in there did I see anything pertaining to startup for new businesses.
Okay, I can tell you there are a number of programs out there, and there is a program that grants tax exemption if buildings are refurbished and rebuilt. And two that come to mind, the Painted Turtle and the Gazzola Block, which is where Montpetit Choux is. And both those buildings, in consideration for a major investment on it, were granted 10 years tax.
Those were heritage tax exemptions. weren't
Heritage
they?
tax. So I'm just saying there are cases for tax exemptions you were asking about.
I know there's the heritage tax exemptions, but certainly when it says, you know, right in the report, make use of the revitalization area tax exemption, I looked it up and I didn't see any.
I'm sorry. I've just mentioned, because you mentioned only the hotels as being, that hotel site as being considered, but there were other developments as well. Ms. Zamborski, did you have any thoughts, or Councillor
Your
Patrick?
Worship,
Go ahead.
sorry. I would like to respond as follows to Mr. Fuller. You're aware that any and all financial obligations that come out of this cultural strategy, this plan, will have to come back to council. And so that would be the time to argue each individual case. I would venture to say to you that if, for instance, we were able to reach and to increase the per capita grant as far as cultural granting is concerned from $2.25 to $3 over 5 years. I think that involves $66,000 in total over 5 years. That alone is going to be of a great help to a lot of the smaller cultural institutions as well. So I think rather than get into the argument right now of what would this council do or a following council, I think it's coming to us, and it would come to us on an individual basis. And so let's just judge each one on its merits.
I realize that it is done on an individual basis. I just find it rather absurd that it's listed in the document and it seems to be under the revitalization area tax exemption, which I looked at, and there's nothing in there that provides for it.
The other thing I would say, Mr. Fuller, is that we're dealing with a new priority, a new pillar of sustainability. So we'll see where it goes. But I think if there should be a cultural organization that wants to be considered for something like that, then at least with this new pillar of sustainability, we should take the extra time and look at it. I think that's all this means.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Gord Fuller, 604 Nichols Street. At the beginning of the meeting, there was a motion to provide a grant of $7,500 changed to less funds from NEDCOR, from council contingency to Friends of Morden Mine. And we just had this really huge cultural plan come before us, arts and culture plan. And I have to wonder if when any of these groups come for monies from the city of Nanaimo and also ask for monies possibly from NEDCOR, whether those monies would be clawed back from their city allocated funds as well.
Well, you know, and that's a valid point. I think in this particular case, a motion was going to be made supporting the amount. That's my understanding. However, we found out that there's also an application made to NEDC, and we wanted to make sure they weren't duplicated. So that's why the motion that was made tonight was that it would be granted subject to whatever arrangement they can make with NEDC. They're not going to be able to have two separate asks and two separate totals.
Well, and I hope in passing that motion, you look at any other cultural and arts applications in the same way, because it's not fair to do to one what you won't do to others.
No, that's a valid point. And another example would be that a number of us sit on the RDN, the regional district, and often we'll have a delegation here asking for money, and lo and behold, at the next meeting of RDN, the same people there looking for an equal amount from the RDN. And a great deal of that RDN money is actually funded by the city of Nanaimo. So your point's taken.
I totally agree. And in this one, it's actually, this funding is contingent on them getting money from the RDN and province. So. Yeah. I hesitate to bring this up at this point. I was going to save it for closer to the date, but Councillor Johnston mentioned, you know, Nanaimo is a fantastic place of arts and culture. And one of the things she mentioned was a festival that we had the dubious distinction of having had for the longest period than any other country in the world, and that's the celebration of Empire Days. The past decade, people have been getting up and speaking out against the Empire Days philosophy that the city has supported. Chief Doug White, a couple of years ago, got up and spoke against it. The Multicultural Society has spoken against it a number of times. And what I'm really hoping is that this year, the city of Nanaimo actually will take a look at that, because if you want to respect culture diversity, then you really have to take into account the many people from cultures that have been subjected to empire building in the past, and empire building which continues to this day, and we are seeing in the Ukraine. So I am hoping you will consider that seriously this year.
Did you want to make a comment? I was just going to say, in the case of the Empire Day Society, it's a duly established society that with a name. So, you know, I know the point you're making, and you know, it will be up to that group really to make a determination whether they choose to change the name. And I'm not sure there's an appetite on their part to do that.
Well, no one's asking.
But I'm not speaking for them.
No one's asking the society to change their name. The city declares that week Empire Days, and we celebrate Empire Days, and we have an Empire Day parade in celebration.
Well, I see a note from Councillor Johnson, the lady who brought this up. So, Councillor Johnson, go for it, and then Councillor Patchy.
I brought it up because it's a fact. It is the longest lasting consecutive festival in the history of Canada. But your point is well taken, and I think it's being well heard by the society. Nobody wants to have a festival, Mr. Fuller, that is offensive to the rest of the citizens of the community. And I think they're hearing the community loud and clear that it's only a name, and the name could be well changed to Victoria Days, May Days, Spring Festival, whatever, but still celebrating the history of the British heritage of our community. And and this year they didn't apply, not because they didn't want to, but they missed the deadline for the festival grant, the cultural grants. So there is no funding this year for the cultural.
Which is too bad, because you know,
it is,
as the saying has gone in the past,
yeah,
parades are fun, empires are not.
They are, and it's probably one of the best attended events is the fireworks display. Yeah. But in these economic times, people are reluctant to maybe designate $10,000 for something that lasts 20 minutes. But anyway, we'll see what happens next year.
Last 20 minutes, but draws about 15,000 people into the downtown area. I mean,
It's huge.
fireworks are cool.
You know, Mr. Fuller, I know where you're coming from, and I can't say that I disagree with you, but it's also very important to know where you're coming from. And if you don't know your history, or if you cannot celebrate your history, then it becomes kind of difficult to know where you're going in many ways. I want to give you another example. In the Netherlands, where I grew up, we give presents and we celebrate St. Nicholas Day, December 5. So remember the date when it comes. That has to do with the Spanish occupation that lasted for 80 years of what is now Dutch territory. And it's celebrated by celebrating the life of a Catholic man, St. Nicholas, who would come to Holland every year with some Moorish helpers, black guys, who used to scare the living daylight out of me when I was a kid, because if you had been a bad boy, those fellows would put you in a bag and take you back to Spain for a whole year. So it was a significant thing for children. As of last year, there has been a very serious attempt in the Netherlands for political correct reasons, to do away with the Black Peter, so-called. And you know, I don't agree with that. That is part of how it happened. that is tradition. That is a part of every kid's life in the Netherlands. And yeah, I kind of put that on a par with your arguments with Empire Days. You know, those who don't like to be part of it, don't have to be in the parade. They don't even have to come and watch. But I think, I look at it as a way to celebrate your history. And, well, I hear where you're coming from. I kind of disagree with you.
Well, interestingly enough, even the British don't celebrate Empire. So, and they're the ones that started it.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi there, Matthew O'Donnell, 25 Front Street. This is, I guess, about the cultural plan for a creative Nanaimo. One of the delegations spoke, well, a lot of the delegations actually spoke a lot about the economic development or the economic benefit that the plan is going to bring specifically to the downtown core. I heard specifically 800 to 1,000 jobs, and that's awesome. I mean, that's a lot of jobs. I was wondering if this plan, or if anyone on council could maybe elaborate and go into a little bit more detail about the jobs that it's going to bring to Nanaimo. Because like I said, 800 to 1,000 jobs, that's a lot.
It's already creating that.
Councillor Page, you
Help
have
me
a-
out, Ms. Zamborski, if you can. Where is Mr. Sasha Angus when we need him? But, but you know, there are direct jobs and there are indirect jobs. I can give you an example of when the Vancouver Island Symphony comes to the Port Theatre, that a lot of work is created in hotels and in restaurants and in bars. It is that kind of connection that that one would have to look for.
Like a snowball effect, eventually.
Oh yes, very much.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. I would just like to also say just about with your tradition in the Netherlands and whatnot. I'm from Nova Scotia, and actually there's a bit of controversy with some politicians out there when they celebrated that holiday. I'd just like to kind of point out that I think the issue there is well, you know, we talk about celebrating traditions and whatnot in the past and everything, but you know, it's blackface, and it's kind of offensive, and I would just like that to be pointed out. I consider it racist, and with all due respect, because I do respect you, but and I respect tradition, but I don't know, I think there's some tradition that could be left in the past and not celebrated, and respectfully, I think that's one of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Move for adjournment? Is there a seconder? We stand adjourned. Thank you.